How about it for our brother in arms? He is the professor. He is a student and lecturer on presidential and U.S. history. He's brilliant. And he used to do a radio show on the station from which we've come, KGO. It's now gone away. And he lives on with us here, in addition to all the other places where he lives on. He's a liver, and he's an honor. And this is the Honorable John Rothman. Hi, John.
I want you to give Kim, for the word copious, a real ding.
That's true. The copious is a strong ding word. John, first, welcome. And I'm wondering if there's anything that we touched on, this case in New York involving now the Stormy Daniels testimony, but also the Lev Parnas testimony strikes me as fairly significant as well for just the nakedness with which he attacks the narrative that has been churned out by Giuliani and Trump.
Well, there's no there to the impeachment of Joe Biden. The Republicans, it is egg on their face. It is a severe embarrassment. They just can't back down from this, but it's just a continuation of nonsense. If there were a smoking gun, then they should have revealed it. They never have, and I have a feeling they aren't going to, and that'll be the end of that.
I don't know to what extent the Parnas testimony will get some media oxygen. I would think it would get some. It's obviously not going to move the MAGA.
No. Only Fox is broadcasting it this morning. I had to interrupt because I wanted to listen to you, but I wonder whether they cited Lev Parnas's comments, which essentially repudiate the entire investigation. I don't consider Fox a reliable source. As I've said in the past, Fox and news is an oxymoron. So but it is what it is. More interesting to me, and I don't know if you remember this great expression, AU H2O 464. AU, of course, gold, H2O, water, 464, 1964. So how do I remember how much money Donald Trump owes? Well, 464. There's a symmetry here between the honesty of Barry Goldwater and the dishonesty of Donald Trump. 464 million. Look, I would be happy if you could raise 1% of that for your program.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, we talk about this. We talked about it with David K. Johnston yesterday. I mean, he is a wildly compromised candidate. Anyone who has this kind of debt, who's going to be beholden to any entity or country or oligarch or any source of this money will compromise him. Yeah.
No, he's just unfit. Listen to his comments that he made about Jews and that he did this week. Shameful in every sense to say that a Jew who votes for a Democrat hates his religion. What nonsense. To say that it would mean the destruction of Israel. How ridiculous. And you know what's the most shocking thing of all? Not that Donald Trump said it, but the Republicans' silence, overall silence in condemning Donald Trump. He has no business being the Republican nominee for president, pure and simple. And in a normal situation, and Donald Trump is not normal, as you and I have discussed, in a normal situation, this would be a disqualification, and it ought to be a disqualification.
Well, this country isn't normal either right now, John. As you know, I think a portion of the electorate is immovable. I mean, they just are in the thrall of this man. And there's also a very powerful media outlet that broadcasts to many who are activated voters, that is to say they will vote, and that's Fox News Channel, and that's just a propaganda machine. So you end up in this weird place where America feels as though it's ripe for the takedown.
We just have to answer it clearly and precisely. And all I can tell you is I believe Donald Trump will lose. I believe that Donald Trump digs his own hole every day. I don't know where he's going to come up with $464 million. I don't know how he's going to get around the discussions that he has had dealing with Jews, dealing with Ukraine, dealing with, well, so many different subjects. So let's give him enough rope to hang himself. And I believe the American people have good sense. I really do. And that's why I don't believe Donald Trump can be elected president of the United States. What's sad, by the way, in Ohio, he made an endorsement. The person he endorsed is now the Republican nominee. Will go down to a crashing defeat. Sherrod Brown, I'm sure, will win that seat. But it's sad that the Republican Party is in the state that it's in. Anyway, I know there are other subjects you want to deal with.
But I love that you mentioned that, and I also like that you, and I think you do this a lot. You come back to the fact that you do have faith in the country as represented by most of the American people. I wish I had that same faith. I think the country's shown that we're a place that is capable of doing good things and also capable of doing some really misguided things. So
we've always known that.
Yeah.
But on balance, I think the American people understand. Let me remind you, Donald Trump has never won the popular vote in any election that he has run in a national sense. He won the electoral vote because the Democrats, frankly, did not stage the kind of campaign they should have in 2016. In 2020, the Democrats came back. They came back strong. Donald Trump lost, and he will lose again. The tragedy in all of this, and I don't want to be redundant, and I don't want to continue to emphasize this point, what's really going to matter, Mark, is when you and I enter into a dialogue about what the Republican Party is going to do after its massive defeat, because that's where they're headed.
Well, I think the other tragedy is that the damage done by the Trump administration is played out in the Supreme Court. And the same is true under George Bush, the younger George Bush. These are two people who should never have been in the presidency. They didn't win. And as a result, it's now, again, like when I say didn't win, I understand that Trump did win the electoral vote. They're two very different situations. I mean, I think the Bush presidency was stolen, but the Trump presidency was legitimately won, as you say.
Let me just
I'm just going to say that the tragedy of what's happening in that Supreme Court appointments is being played out every day in America. Now, you, please.
Yeah, I just want to say that very soon we are going to have a verdict from the Supreme Court on the question of blanket amnesty for a president of the United States, whether or not a president's above the law. I believe the Supreme Court decision, I'm sticking my neck out to say it, I think the Supreme Court decision will either be unanimously against Trump or it'll be a 7-2 vote. I think it's possible that Alito and Thomas would vote with Trump. But make no mistake, when Donald Trump talks about the fact that if he loses, it will irreparably damage the American presidency, my answer is if he wins, it will irreparably damage the American presidency. What he's doing is what Roy Cohn, of infamous notoriety, suggested to him: just go on the attack. If they accuse you of something, go ahead and accuse them of something. Just deflect. And I think that is what has happened. But I must tell you, I will be shocked if the Supreme Court upholds his blanket immunity. And if they don't, and that decision will come down, I think, sooner rather than later. If they don't, then Donald Trump will face all of the charges which he so richly deserves. And let me say a word about Georgia.
Well, before you say anything about Georgia, let me just say that he got what he wanted from the Supreme Court, because I think you're right. Most of the legal scholars with whom we interact agree with you that the Supreme Court will rule against Trump. But in taking the case at all, which they never should have done, John Rothman, you know that, the judgment at the lower court was very well written and very well cited. There was no reason for the Supreme Court to take this case up. It buys Trump more time. And in the game of delay, he again wins.
But let me point out to you, the Supreme Court had to take it up. I'm going to disagree with you on that. It's the same statement I made about Florida when the Bush v. Gore thing came up. And people said, well, the Florida Supreme Court has ruled in a logically laid out decision. It ought to stand. And I said on KGO, on an all-star panel, I said quite the contrary. Nobody can decide the presidency of the United States in a state Supreme Court. It has to go to the federal court. And I believe the federal court in this case will do the right thing. I don't think the Supreme Court can avoid the fact that Donald Trump claiming a massive executive privilege is absolutely unacceptable. And by the way, I'm glad that will happen. I think it will set an important precedent. And frankly, I think it will be a great blow to Donald Trump, and he'll deserve that blow when it comes.
Go ahead to Georgia now.
Yeah, just want to say about Fani Willis, I frankly don't give a tinker's toot about Fani Willis. I care about the fact that Donald Trump tried to interfere in the Georgia election. That is indisputable in my judgment. In his own words, indisputable. And therefore, I believe that no matter what happens with Fani Willis, no matter her indiscretion, her affair with her partner there, makes no difference. There's only one question which has to be addressed. Did Donald Trump try to subvert the election in Georgia in 2020? And the answer is yes, he did. It's clear. All you have to do is listen to his own words to know it. So the question is, can we, in the cloud of war, or the fog of war, if you will, this is a war, a political war. And what Trump is doing is offering up as much deflection as he can. And can you believe that he would suggest, even negotiate with Paul Manafort to put Manafort in charge of the Republican National Convention? Absurd, and ought to be a disqualifier as well. I would remind you, Manafort, a convicted felon, was pardoned by Donald Trump, but clearly tipped off the Russians during the 2016 campaign on polling data. It is beyond my comprehension, and it ought to be emphasized and understood by everyone that is the simple reality.
Well, Manafort was a Russian operative. There's absolutely no question about it.
And Trump wants to put him in charge of the Republican National Convention?
Again, he wants him in his orbit because he wants a pipeline into the oligarchy and into the power structure that is
That's why he
Russia.
Pardoned him. Remember, exactly. The president has absolute power of pardon, and Manafort got a pardon. And as for, well, there's so many cases here. Keep going. You throw them out, and I'll bat them back to you.
Well, I mean, if you want to talk about Trump pardons, how about is it Kelly, the general?
General John Kelly, who was the White House chief of staff and who Trump acclaimed. You can find the sound of that. Who now says that Donald Trump said that Hitler did some good things. And Kelly said, you can't say that. That it's absurd. He needs to be slapped down for that. And then one of the other aides suggested, well, why don't you tout Mussolini? I suggest people watch the movie The Garden of Fenzi Contini to understand Mussolini's role in that, or simply let's take Franklin Roosevelt's great speech at the University of Virginia, that hand that held the dagger thrusted into the back of its neighbor, and referring to what Italy did in relation to France. So all I can tell you is all of these analogies, all of these things are profoundly disturbing, and any one of them ought to be a disqualifier for Donald Trump. I mentioned so right. Barry Goldwater at the beginning of this. If Goldwater were alive, he'd be rolling over in his grave. He couldn't believe.
Well, if he were alive, he wouldn't be rolling over in his grave. He wouldn't be in a grave if he were alive. God, John, please. Are you kidding now? All right. Now, I
got a ding for that. I got a ding for that.
Albert, there's no excuse for dinging whatever I did there.
Albert, thank you.
All right. Now, I was talking about Michael Flynn, by the way, when I was talking about Kelly. I'm sorry, I misspoke because Flynn got the pardon from Trump. That's what I was thinking about.
General Flynn got a pardon as well. Remember, he served the shortest tenure as national security advisor.
Disgrace
he broke
to
all
this
the rules.
country.
He met with the Russians. I mean, the absurdity of it is profoundly.
And now he's lionized by the right, as you know. Michael Flynn is this right-wing hero. It's absolutely obscene. So, John, I want to quickly go to Texas. This has nothing to do with Trump per se, but maybe MAGA-ites or extreme right, and this desire to essentially take the business of deportation and the arresting of illegals who come into this country who are undocumented, coming across the border, taking it into their own hands. I wonder if you could speak to this. Again, Kim had noted, and we noted the first half hour, they've gone back and forth on this as a court case, but I was noting that Arpaio did it in Arizona. It's not the first time that somebody has kind of decided as a local official to seize control of something that's generally thought to be a federal jurisdiction.
Listen, it's ridiculous. Texas has no role in this kind of immigration situation. I know that in the end, the court will rule that it's a federal matter, not a state matter. So, what can I tell you? This is all more of the same from the Republicans and Donald Trump. By the way, you heard this morning that Donald Trump is now considering, he hasn't done it yet, endorsing a 15-week ban on abortion. And those ladies in the audience and men, how many people know they're pregnant at 15 weeks? I mean, it is so disturbing. The Republican Party on so many levels, or the party of Trump. Let's not call it the Republican Party anymore. Let's call it the Trump Party. And let's defeat them. They deserve defeat.
Well, leaving aside whether, what the term should be, I would say, great, Trump, the more you say the A word on the stump, the better it is for the Democrats, because the reality is that this wildly right-wing, intense grasp on a woman's reproductive freedoms, it is out of step with this country. It's out of step with a lot of the developed world.
It's out of step with what is right. That's the point. France just amended its constitution. And why do you think they did it, really? It's a reaction to what's happening here. But I want to go back to something that is very personal to me. I talked about Donald Trump's comments about Jews. I am a Jew. I am active in the Jewish community. I'm active in the American political process. I've been a radio talk show host now for 3 decades. Believe me, my reputation is clear and precise. And when I hear Donald Trump make the kind of absurd statements that he has made, and the silence from the Republican Party in condemning Donald Trump, I'm appalled. And this is not a partisan matter. I would say this if it were a Democrat or a Republican. I would remind you that when Jesse Jackson made his comments about Jaime and Jaimetown, I was up front in blasting Jesse Jackson. Actually got a formal resolution through a Democratic club here condemning him for it and saying we'd never vote for him for president. I felt the same way about Pat Buchanan. You know what Bill Buckley said about Pat Buchanan when he made his anti-Semitic comments? If it quacks like a duck and waddles like a duck and looks like a duck, it's a duck. Pat, you're a duck. Donald Trump, you're a duck. And all I can say is I say this with full indignation because Jews around the world already are feeling the rise in anti-Jewish feeling, Jew hatred. And when you see Donald Trump making a statement like that on the silence from the so-called Republican Party, it's shameful, and there ought to be a stand. Do you remember, I don't know if many people remember this, when David Duke was active in the Republican Party, was nominated by the Republicans to be governor of Louisiana, and do you remember that George H.W. Bush did something unprecedented? He denounced David Duke, renounced that ticket. That's the kind of courage the Republican Party needs to have today. And I will never forgive, nor will I forget these kinds of intolerable remarks, because they go to the heart of who I am as a human being, as a Jew, as an American citizen, and it's simply unacceptable. And I believe, let me tell you, this is just the beginning of what will be a torrent of these kinds of reactions to Donald Trump. That's why the Republican Party, I think, has made a terrible mistake in nominating him. But you know what? It'll be a liberation. And you and I, after November 5th, will talk about how to rebuild the Republican Party without Donald Trump.
I've missed John's thundering, says Barry S. Now you have a little bit of the thunder back. And yeah, I think that John was saying before we were talking about 16-week ban or 15-week ban.
15-week. That's 15, what he's talking about. He hasn't done it yet.
But women do know that they're pregnant. I mean, that's enough time you'd know you're pregnant.
No, I'm sorry to differ with you. I have
it's over 3 months, John. I mean,
I've had very good friends who've said that at 15 weeks, some of them just find out they're pregnant even later. Oh. It's absurd, and it wouldn't matter one way or the other. A woman should control her own body.
I mean, I agree. We agree on that. I was just trying to correct the record, but if you say so, okay, cool. I don't know when. I mean,
I'm sure women who are now listening to us will email you in torrents telling you how correct I am on this one. And I won't even be here to get the dings.
I will torrent. I'll ding it. The first torrent that he provided. The second torrent goes without recognition. His show is John Rothman. The podcast is Around the Political World with John Rothman. Again, Around the Political World with John Rothman. You can find it wherever better podcasts are available. It's all over Apple Podcasts and Spotify, etc. And he's doing really well. And we love that you spend time with us.
I want to thank you, by the way, and I want to thank everybody for the meet and greet. I said to Mark on the air, and I will say it to you now, that should happen more often. Not only was it a great forum with great people participating, but it also gave people a chance to interrogate us. And I think that is what is really critical. That's what we miss. So, Mark, you did a great service, and I hope you schedule it again. And when you do, I hope you will give me the privilege of participating with you.
You're a big part of things, and a lot of people wanted to speak with you, and we'll look forward to the next one. Yeah, we'll not wait
Support
so
Mark
long.
Thompson.
Yes, thank you, John Rothman, everybody. Come on. Let's hear it for the man. Love it, John. Thanks for being here. Yeah. Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.